Hi people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new recent release video. The first book on this list is called Zachary, Ying, and the Dragon Emperor. This book is a middle-aged contemporary fantasy that follows a young boy who journeys across China in order to seal the underworld realm and to save the mortal realm. Honestly, I rated this book 3 stars because I didn't love it as much as I was really expecting to, but honestly, I already had low expectations for the story because this author previously wrote Iron Widow, and this book is their middle grade debut, and I didn't love Iron Widow when I read it last year as much as everybody else did. So with this book, I won't be reading the sequel because I rated this book 3 stars. Don't get me wrong, the plot was engaging and the world building was definitely easier to understand than the world building in Iron Widow, and I definitely understand the hype for this book for sure. It's just that for me the story was too fast-paced and too action-packed for me to really settle into it, if that makes any sense, and become connected to the characters and to the platonic friend group dynamic or anything like that. So for me, that's why I rated it 3 stars. And even though I understand the appeal and everything like that, I won't be reading the sequel. So with all of that said, I don't really recommend this book because it wasn't really what I wanted it to be. So yeah, take that as you will. The next book on this list is called The Summer of Bitter and Sweet. This book is a YA contemporary following a young girl who's indigenous and who's also on the asexual spectrum, and she's navigating new and old friendships and relationships amongst other things. Honestly, I rated this book 3 stars because first of all, the plot was very engaging, the romance was sweet, the ace spectrum representation and the indigenous representation was very good and it was very nice. However, I felt like the author was trying to tackle too many storylines all at once because there were so many storylines that happened in this story between the main character and her parents, the main character and her uncles, the main character and her best friend. Her best friend had some side relationships as well, the main character and her current romance and her old previous ex-romance, and there were just so many storylines that happened in this book, and I just felt like some of them didn't get the attention and the development that they needed, that they deserved. So I just felt like the author was trying to tackle so many things, and they didn't really do a great job tackling everything together, if that really makes any sense. So with that said, I rated this book 3 stars because there were a few things that I did enjoy, the romance, I mentioned, the ace representation, the indigenous representation, and the plot itself was engaging. There's only one thing that I didn't really like I disliked the bisexuality representation in the main character's best friend. You know what I mean? I just didn't like that because it felt very stereotypical to me, and stereotypical in kind of a negative way, if that makes any sense, without spoiling anything. So anyway, with all of that said, I rated this book 3 stars. I probably won't be reading anything more from this author in the future, and with all that said, I really don't recommend this book. The next book on this list is called The Cartographers. This book is a 5-star favorite, and I loved it so much. It's an adult contemporary thriller, and it follows a young woman whose recently deceased dad left behind an old raggedy map, and she doesn't really know why. Map making is her first love, but also she hasn't spoken to her dad in several years, so she has no idea what's going on or why he left behind this particular map, since it's so old and so raggedy. Why this particular map? But she hasn't spoken to him in so long, so she really doesn't know anything, so she goes on this mystery to figure out why. This book was so good, and I mentioned, I rated it 5 stars because I literally loved it so much. First of all, the map making elements was so fascinating and absolutely so interesting. This book reminded me of the series of unfortunate events, which I love so much, the Star Sea, except with maps instead of stories, and the Map Makers trilogy by S.E. Grove, which I also love so much. The plot of the story was so engaging and absolutely so thrilling. The plot twist truly took me by surprise, and we love to see it. The characters were so well developed and so distinct, and there was never a point in time that I felt like the author created too many characters, because each character was so individual and so distinct. The family dynamics and all of the different relationships, the platonic and the romantic ones, were so well developed and absolutely so interesting. This book is so good. It's so fascinating, and it's so well done, and it's so meticulous, and I was so immersed in the story from the very beginning to the very end. So with all of that said, I rated this book 5 stars because I absolutely loved it. So with that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called See You Yesterday. This book is a YA contemporary following a young, plus-size Jewish main character who's stuck in a time loop of her first day at college, and she's also stuck with somebody that she doesn't particularly like that much. This book was so good. I rated it 4 stars because it was absolutely so immersive and so engaging. For those who don't know, this book was one of my most anticipated 2022 new releases, and it absolutely met and exceeded those expectations, thankfully. First of all, the plot was so immersive, and it was absolutely so engaging, and the fact that the main character was in a time loop never truly felt like redundant to me at all. Like, it was redundant because like she's in a time loop, but it also wasn't redundant because like I was so immersed in everything that was happening, and the romance was developing as the story progressed, and the romance was literally so cute, and it was so well developed, and their chemistry felt so like natural and so well done. This book is so good because it was so well developed in every single element, and it was absolutely so good. And honestly, I would say that this book is just as good as Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, which I believe is one of Rachel Lynn Solomon's best books, although honestly I love all of her YA books together. You know what I mean? She is literally so talented, and I will gladly continue to support her in the future. So anyway, with all of that said, I rated this book 4 stars because I really, really enjoyed it, and with that I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. This book is a YA contemporary following a lesbian at a new Catholic school who's trying to fly under the radar after recently being outed by her best friend, but it's hard to do that when the other openly queer girl at her school is absolutely so attractive. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but basically this book was good and it was solid, and I rated it 3 stars, and I definitely understand the hype. It's just that for me, I had different expectations going in, and for some reason I thought this book was going to be more angsty than it actually was, because it was actually like a lot more fluffy, and it reminded me a lot more of like Felix Ever After than I was really expecting, if that makes any sense. The plot was super engaging, and this book was like super immersive, and it hooked me from the very beginning, for sure. Like, the characters were well developed and distinct. The sapphic romance was cute and it was sweet. The family dynamics were like great and sweet and everything. It's just that I thought this book was going to be like more angsty and more heavy than it actually was, because it was actually like a fluffy, sweet, like sapphic YA contemporary, which if I had known that going in, I definitely would have enjoyed this book a lot more, if that makes any sense. So basically, with all of that said, I rated this book 3 stars because it wasn't really like what I expected, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like there's that, you know what I mean? Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I do absolutely like recommend this book because I definitely understand the hype. So anyway, take that as you will. The last book on this list is called Melt With You. This book is a YA sapphic contemporary that follows a young bisexual main character who must go on a summer road trip in an ice cream truck with her former best friend, who's also her ex. Honestly, I rated this book 3 stars because I didn't really like it as much as I was really expecting to. I had much higher expectations for this book because I've read the author's previous 2 books, Some Girls Do and Verona Comics, but honestly, this book reminded me more of the author's debut, Hot Dog Girl, than Verona Comics and Some Girls Do, which I rated both 4 stars, but I rated this book and Hot Dog Girl 3 stars. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but basically this book kind of disappointed me, so we hate to see it. First of all, I thought that the romance didn't really have much connection or chemistry, because like the problem with exes to lovers in second chance romance, it means that like all of their connection and chemistry was already established in the past, and there's not much of it in the present, so I just like didn't ship them. And I also didn't feel like the characters themselves were fully developed, if that makes any sense. Like, I thought that this book would have two perspectives, and it didn't, and I wish that it did, because like the characters could have been so much more developed than they were, and I felt like the miscommunication between the main character and her love interest wasn't really like fully resolved. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but the plot itself was engaging. I just didn't really care like for the characters themselves, or the romance as the story progressed, or really like the business ice cream truck piece of it all. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but basically I didn't really like this book as much as I was really expecting to, and it really disappointed me. So with all of that said, I rated this book 3 stars, and I really don't recommend it. So, in conclusion, my favorite books on this list were definitely the Cartographers, since it's a new 5-star favorite and I can't stop thinking about it, and See You Yesterday, which I really enjoyed so much. And honestly, I don't really recommend any of the other books on this list, so yeah, there's that. If you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the kiwi emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!